Breaker Broke 23. Today we're going to take a look at the Zen Blue high-resolution Bluetooth receiver. This is from ifi Audio out of the United Kingdom. When I first unboxed this piece, I was very impressed with the build quality of it, the aluminum chassis here, and the weight. I mean, the thing weighs more than a pound. It's not a plasticky, cheapy, cheesy little square box that is so popular right now. Included in the box, it has the little adjustable antenna, the little white SMA mount type antenna. It's white instead of black. I kind of like that. I think that's kind of daring, but that's kind of goes with the whole design. This is really not your average square box design. It comes with a set of RCA cables. These are kind of reminiscent of some entry-level monster cables from back in the 90s. Here is our OEM 5-volt AC wall adapter. This is a little switching power supply adapter with a 5.2 coaxial end on there. Old school, really like that. By the way, this company is really into power supplies, and you can upgrade and go to a bigger, better, quieter power supply. I think maybe you headphone guys might appreciate that. I'm just 2-channel stereo. I use a lot of vintage equipment, and I don't really honestly think a power supply upgrade would be beneficial to my system. However, I have made up a plug, and I ran it off of a 5-volt battery for a clean DC source, and I couldn't hear a difference, honestly. All right, so on the front, we have the user controls and features. Here's what we have. We have a Bluetooth pairing button. This is to pair your device to this particular unit. This is not an on-off switch, so you really don't need one, quite honestly, because if you take that wall adapter and plug it into the AC socket on the back of your receiver or preamplifier, this will turn on and off with that receiver. So I really like that. All right. We have here this little window right here. This is our codec display window. So this unit currently processes and can handle up to 8 different formats. That would be SBC, AAC, aptX, aptX HD, aptX Adaptive, aptX LL, LDAC, and HWA. So for instance, if you were in HWA mode, this would be white. If you were in LDAC, this would be cyan. If you were in AAC, this would be yellow, and it has the colors would be yellow, blue, magenta, green, red, cayenne, and white. So I kind of like that little visual there. Kind of lets you know what codec you're using. And because of this being so flexible, to me, it's one of the most flexible devices out there for all those codecs. So you can play around and experiment and yeah, have a lot of fun with this. Over here, we have the Bluetooth pairing display. It will blink when it is in pairing mode, and when it is hooked up, it lights up solid. On the rear, we have 4.4 millimeter balanced output. This is, again, makes this unit very, very flexible in that if you have an amplifier, preamplifier with balanced inputs, XLR type inputs, you can do that. You can also use this in some DJ equipment or put it into a mixer, so you could use this in a pro sound type setting. I've had a lot of viewers request or ask me if you could do that. And with this unit, you can do it and get the proper output level and the proper sound. By using RCAs, you won't really get that. Okay, then we have here, still on the analog side, we have RCA outputs. These are a fixed output at just a hair over 2 volts, which is great. That means that the output level on this will match most of your outboard products. For instance, it would be the same volume as your CD player, a DVD player, Blu-ray, or a cassette deck even. So this is a really important function as far as I'm concerned. You have to have the proper preamp level. Back in the day, or with some of the cheaper units, you'll get about half of this preamp level, and so you'll have to turn your volume control up halfway or maybe 2/3 of the way up to get the proper volume level, or to equal the same volume level that you would get from a CD player. Okay, we have our analog and digital switch here. So basically you switch it this way towards analog, only these outputs put anything out, and you go over here to digital, and then only these outputs will work. We have coaxial, we have optical output here on the digital side as well. We have the power plug right here. Again, the old school style power plug, which I really like. And then the removable antenna, which is just your standard SMA. So that's pretty cool. All right, so I'll give you guys my impressions of the sound of this. The sound of this unit is extremely clean. This is these Bluetooth 5.0 units now are getting almost CD quality, but I think it's how an engineer or designer uses that that technology. For instance, this has the Qualcomm 5100 series chipset in it. And yeah, you can have a really nice chipset, but it's like, what do you do in front of the chipset and out the back end of the chipset? That's really what matters. I mean, you can have a nice chipset, but how do you control that chipset? What do you tell that chipset to do? And then how do you utilize the output from that chipset? And I think that ifi did just an awesome job of doing this. Yeah, I'm really amazed at this. This thing sounds so great. It has a very even sound stage to it. It has great separation from side to side. I really like it. It can be bright on music files that are bright, and it can be dull and boring on, cruddy, dull and boring music files. Some Bluetooth receivers that I've played around with here over the past few years, they kind of mask it. They all just kind of have the same sound and same tonal quality, and I believe it's the way they use that chipset and then their built-in DACs. And this doesn't really do it. If you have a file that just doesn't sound right, it's not going to sound right with this. This is going to show it up. If you have maybe like an old Stones file or a Zeppelin file or something, you're actually going to kind of get that British sound from this. Maybe because that's designed in Britain and they put a little bit of that heritage in there. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It could be me. But anyway, I think it's just a phenomenal sounding piece of gear, and especially at $129.99. That's on Amazon, and I believe on the ifi's website as well. And I'll put links to that stuff down below. So pretty cool. One last thing that I thought was kind of a neat touch. A lot of Bluetooth receivers will give you like a tone or some sort of annoying sound when you first turn them on, power them up, and then pair to them. And I think these guys did something kind of classy. They have a very beautiful British female voice that tells you when this is turned on. It tells you when it's paired up and what codec you're using. And I think that's just a really nice touch. The volume of the voice is just subtle. It's got a great sound to it. So anyway, at $129, look, I got to be honest with you. I have some units that cost much more than this, and I think this is beating them. I think this is actually a better sounding device. I really do. It has, standard range. It's Bluetooth 5.0, so it's got a good range. I don't have picket fencing or dropping in and out when I'm walking around the house with my device. It's been very solid, very sturdy. And I must say, this is on a 60-day loan from ifi Audio, and I'm going to have a hard time boxing this thing and sending it back. I've fallen in love with it. I think the design is pretty interesting. It doesn't really match a lot of HiFi gear. It matches their own gear, their headphone amps and all that, and their DACs and all that. But it's interesting looking. It looks like something out of a 50s, 60s sci-fi movie. Oh, speaking of DAC on this has a great DAC in here. I've actually gone and compared what this sounds like with using the built-in DAC and my outboard Ship Modi 3. And I really can't tell much of a difference at all. It will change certain programs, certain files, but it's kind of a sixes type thing. So if you want to add this to your old vintage home stereo and you're worried about DAC, or are you going to need a DAC, an outboard DAC, I would honestly say you don't. But I mean, you could always try it. I mean, they're getting pretty reasonable. I think I paid $99 for my Modi 3. So you could do that if you want, but you have lots of flexibility with it. So with all those various outputs, it's just phenomenal. So we're going to wrap this video up. I'm going to let you hear milady speaking with this. We're going to fire it up and let you hear what she sounds like. And I think really, most importantly, we're going to take a look at the insides of this. So, all right, let's go on to the next phase. Okay, so we have the Zen hooked back up to my stereo receiver, and I have the AC adapter hooked up to the switched outlet or the switched output power of the old Marantz here. So I'll show you what I'm talking about with not needing to have an on-off switch. So let's listen to her, and she's going to tell us that it's on and that we're pairing and unpairing. I'm going to run it through that on my old cell phone a couple times. I only have, let's see, LDAC Classic and then off, I think it was. So yeah, let's start this up.
Tooth power on.
Okay, and then we will pair it.
Pairing.
We'll okay that.
Your device is connected.
Okay, so
LDAC.
okay, so now we're gonna
aptX Classic.
We're gonna switch to codecs.
LDAC.
There you go. I like that. I prefer that. I think that's really classy over, you know, tones and chirps and stuff like that. And I think that's just a really classy way to go. Now, I'm not going to really play anything for a couple reasons. You can't really get the gist of it over the internet, and depending on what device you guys are using. But yeah, it's a beautiful sounding rig. So now let's get to the fun stuff. Okay, so we've got the Zen Blue on the bench, and we're gonna take a look inside. Okay, so to save time, I've already taken the screws out. These are Torx, very small Torx that passes through all the way through the device from the rear panel to the front panel. So let's take the front panel off first. And we have a nice thick piece of aluminum. And let's see here, we've got the pairing button here. That sounds metallic, so that's nice. I believe this window is glass, like a frosted glass, and this could be more like a plexiglass. Kind of that frosted look. That mellows out the intensity of those LEDs. Let's take a look from the front. Instantly, right off, we see that the main PC board goes in between these little channels right here and suspends it up off of the enclosure. So it'll be good and solid, doesn't rattle around. Pretty common in construction nowadays. And the outer case is seamless. Seems to be very well machined. This is interesting. Okay, so there are no through holes here, but the little rubber feet are double, you know, they're stuck on with an adhesive of some kind, but they're actually milled out. They are semi-recessed in there, so there was some planning in there. These guys didn't just affix rubber feet somewhere. There's a purpose to this, and there's this little indentation in there. So I like that. That's awesome engineering. Okay, to the board. Well, that's a pretty clean layout. We have a grounding pin. You don't see this too often. This is kind of something we see in radio, but this little pin is spring loaded, and what this does is this ties the board ground into the device's chassis ground. So the whole thing is grounded. And depending on how that's wired in circuit, that'll be for noise isolation. And there's the little contact strip for that. So this will make contact with this. Very nice. We have pinout markings here for the balanced output. Obviously, this is meant to be serviced because we have identifiers here. And I'm going to assume these are various test points as well. Either serviced or this is just part of the QC. So very cool. All right, on the board, let's see. Component side of the board. We have our DC coaxial power plug. I'll get into that in a minute. Our little SMA connector. This will be our chipset. Looks big, doesn't it? Let's see something here. Let's cheat. Oh, look at that. Thank you. All right. I've got my thick glasses on here real quick. So this looks to be, this is the Qualcomm chipset. Not exactly sure what this is. This could be some sort of a power supply for this area. I could be way off on that, but I do know that this is the 5100 chipset. This right here is, and they've kind of washed this a little bit, but let me get my real thick glasses on here. Okay, so this is the ESS technology. This is our DAC chip right here. So this is the DAC area from digital to analog. So that's a neat layout. And then, of course, our TDK capacitors and our 4.4 millimeter balanced output. And then these are the panel mount RCA devices here. And our digital to analog switch. This is kind of cool. This is sort of an old school switch. Oh yeah. This will be serviceable. So, you know, if you have a dusty environment, or it gets dusty in the back of your rack and this switch starts giving you problems, you could get in here, theoretically, you could get in here and clean that out with some deox. Yeah, very good. Okay. Okay, so our balanced out 4.4 millimeter, our analog RCAs. I wish they were flipped. Right should be on the right side, but that's okay. Our digital analog switch, coaxial out, optical output, little SMA, and then our coaxial DC power plug, as we used to call these. This is very old technology, and let's spend a second on that. Let me see here, real quick. Okay, this is a coaxial plug, standard 5.2 millimeter outside diameter. That barrel seemed to be a little long. Okay, we'll go back to the factory one. This is the factory ifi one. And I like how this plugs in. It plugs in, it goes all the way up to the back of the plate here, so it's a good firm mount. However, there is some slop that is actually built into this, and that's a good thing because it acts as a relief over here on the other side of the board. So it will reduce the chance of, oh, and they even went another step further, but it'll reduce the chance of them coming unsoldered, creating bad solder joints and stress on the board, undue stress on the board. This is 40-year-old technology, guys, and it works, and this is why these guys are using this. I much prefer this. Now, this is 5 volts. I much prefer that versus, say, let's see here, let's grab one of these. Well, I won't show you what this is, the brand. I won't show the brand. But this is the micro USB. And let's plug, I hate that. Let's plug it in. And as we can see, it's not quite in all the way. It's only about halfway in. So if you're one of those guys that wants that sucker seated in there all the way, you're going to actually damage this on the board. And it's never going to seat in, but you're going to damage it. And it also wiggles. It'll actually wiggle out very easily. So this is, yes, this is modern and techie. That's awesome. This is old school and totally reliable. I'm digging on that. All right. And because this is a loaner piece, I need to put that back on. Okay. Sorry, HiFi, but I got to show the innards. I don't do a review without seeing how these devices are made, and this is top quality stuff. Really liking that. Very nice, clean layout. All right. Well, sounds good. Let's put this thing back together, and then we'll put it back on, let's see, the old Marantz, I think. We'll put it on an old vintage receiver. All right. So I'm going to break down and play you a little something. Here we go. We'll do this as an outro. Sorry about that audio quality, guys. I warned you. I'm just taping with my GoPro. Thanks for watching.